All right, we are live on YouTube and you can start.
So Dave, you want us to take it from here?
Yes, please. So I got an echo now, sorry. Yes, go ahead and take it over. So this is budget finance meeting, and today is July 9th, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Hardman.
So I think the first topic we can discuss is kind of give you an update on the expansion plans, the financing model. We got where we're at with that in light of our refinancing. And just kind of give you a sense of where we believe we're headed on that front. So who wishes to take it from there?
Yeah, I can go ahead. I got some worksheets to we can go through.
Can somebody, by the way, will somebody email me the link to this meeting, because I want to get off my iPhone and get on my computer, but I don't have the link. So
all right, are we looking at do you see an Excel worksheet now?
I do.
Okay. So first of all, we'll kind of show you what the result of the refi. Back at the very end of May, we closed in June on the refi. So we did well. We went out to market. So this spreadsheet shows prior debt service versus the refunding debt service, and then this column is savings. We saved $3.1 million with a net present value of $2.5 million. We kind of got excited that we were going to do just a little bit better, probably the 70 hours leading up to the pricing. But this blew away anything that we had ever shared in print with the group. So it was pretty cool and a big first step towards making any kind of extension work out rolling forward. I'll switch tabs. This next one rolls through kind of a sources and uses of what if we would roll forward with an expansion. The most recent estimates, because we took the project before we kind of took a pause here. We took it up to really to the edge of bidding. We were prepared. We are prepared to go out for bid if we would want to from the design perspective. It came back at about $16.8 million project. So for this purposes, we rolled through with a $17 million project. Up here at the top, it shows the different grants we got, the city contribution we have, the money we've been talking about putting in as the city, and the county's $3 million that they gave us earlier this year. And then that would also be coupled with about a $12.3 million additional debt if we were to go. So what that looks like in the funding model, this should all look familiar. We've looked at different versions of this over the years. So this shows we were at $3.3 million at the is kind of an estimate of where we would end 2020 at. And then we if we were to roll forward, this is where the new money would roll into here. This would be the new debt service. You see where it's very, I apologize. It's very backloaded here. At the back, it wraps around the existing debt. So we pay kind of pretty much an interest only or mostly interest for several years here. And then we pay off that new money at the end. This column right here, these 1.5s, and they go up to 1.9. This is our refinance debt. It's sort of followed the pattern of the old debt. There was kind of a hole in these early years, these next 7 or 8 years. They do a couple of things. Right now, we're going to have some concern about being able to make the local fund with motel tax. It provides a lot of flexibility because there is not a lot of money out the door. As much as it'll be in 2028. But here is the debt service on the note. There's still $1 million worth of note out there. that we need to pay off over the next 4 to 8 years. Yeah, you can see the, and this is with the city contributing about $1 million in hotel tax. 100,000 would go towards restricted upkeep, 900,000 over to the debt fund. And then the fund actually does relatively decent. It hovers in the mid twos. It dips just below 2, and then ends kind of in 2.5, which is a decent range. It's not the 3 million we've had for a long time. And this current situation is showing why we want to have a bigger number like that. That is the funding model. That only includes the base project. There's 3 or 4 big ticket items I know we would really like to have that are not in that 16.8. But that's the basic of the model. If we wanted to massage that and see what that looks like if we don't make our contribution, or if we make half the county, that's pretty easy to do here. But you can kind of see where we're in decent shape for the next several years here.
So the reason I wanted to do that update is, you know, we have had conversations administratively, and I think I've talked to some of you about what our next step is with regard to the convention center expansion. And I think until earlier this week, I was firmly in the camp of we need to just hold on to that. We don't know what that will mean, and haven't had discussions yet with the county about what that means with regard to the 3 million that they've already provided to us to make that happen. So, however, and looking at what our debt obligation is currently based on our refinancing and the good position we are money flow wise, it is a question that we need to ask: is this the time to move forward with this expansion, or do we wait for our convention center to come back to working order? So that's what I kind of wanted you. That's topic 1 for our conversation tonight, is to get some feedback from you, as I've heard that there are at least some members of council that I've not spoken to that seem to think we should proceed and move forward with a borrow now to do that expansion as we had planned. So
Kevin, I got a question. So obviously the county's has an uphill battle right now. To get a feel for their commitment, once again, what's the likelihood, or what would be the probability, or can they back out of the agreement that we've worked with them to get to this point?
So our agreement requires that we bond for the expansion by the end of this year.
Okay.
So if we don't, technically, we have to refund that 3 million, and the agreement goes away. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't have a conversation about extending that. It doesn't mean we won't, do everything we can to try to get both the CFA and the city, because they both have to agree to those changes that we've made to give us an extension in light of what's going on. But we have not started that conversation yet. I've intentionally not started that conversation yet. But that would be the next step at this point. I think the one thing that's going to be an issue is the $3 million that we currently, because I fully expect that the fund that pays us our 1.3 million, but also pays the Duke Energy Center bond debt, is going to be hurting, if not this year. I think it will.
but definitely in 2021, because that's all TOT tax. That's all hotel lodging tax, and there virtually has been none coming in from the city for a good few months here. And it doesn't look like that's turning around anytime soon. So there's obligations that the county has to use their general fund to pick up some of that 1.3 million. There's obligations that we have if that 1.3 million comes short. So that's why we have these good backstops that are in place, and why we put together this funding model in the first place, because we can weather this storm for probably 2 years without any significant problem. It's if it gets much beyond that is where we end up with some difficulty. So that's also, I think, would be part of the county saying, yeah, we gave you this 3 million, but we got to get it back. We understand why you go forward now, but we need this back because we need to meet our Duke Center obligation and we need to meet our obligation to you. So maybe the argument will be, well, use that 3 million to pay down our $1.3 million contribution in 2020. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things that could go into that conversation, but that's where it opens up if we don't borrow for this expansion by the end of the year. That's our deadline from the agreement.
Okay. I would agree with you that if we do not go forward, they're going to want the money back. That's my opinion. I could honestly see why they would do that. So really our decision is if we don't go forward, we really have to expect we're going to have to refund that 3 million. I think that's 90% plus probability, or we proceed forward. And if we do that based on the numbers, we can weather the storm for 2 years, and then it gets rough at that point. Correct?
Yes.
And I just completed a quick exercise to show what 1 year skip of the county 1.3 in 21, and then I also rolled out kind of a combo. I skipped 2 years of city contribution. So this is the effect of missing the city number once or twice and the county number once. So that's kind of a little bit of a stress test. And you see where, although it gets pretty thin, it actually doesn't go negative until really late in the model when you hope you're able to make that up.
Scott, what is each line? Is that a month?
It's a 1 year. That's a year.
Okay. So based on this, we wouldn't go negative for, is that 12 years? Is that correct?
Yeah, and a lot of things would happen between now and
right.
then, but yeah, this shows basically skipping a 2021 county payment, and then shows 2 years worth of skip of city contribution, just to kind of show you a little bit of a stress test.
Hey Scott, when does this model start?
This model's been rolling forward since 2010.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is the model. Okay, down here, when the new funding would start, the new expansion obligation.
The model in front of us right now assumes that we would actually borrow the money in October this year.
Okay, so where I'm going with this is, yes, we don't think that we can extend the end of the year deadline until we have to give the $3 million back. But I'd like to know 100%, not 90. If there's a possibility that we can extend that, then I think it'd be wiser to push it as far as we can, so this model goes as far as it can, and lining that up with what's going on in the economy. There's some big ifs out there right now, and some people are saying the economy has stalled a little bit. The growth pattern has stopped. I think if we delay this, we need to delay this as long as we can, without losing it.
So the only issue, I get that, Ed. The only issue with not having that 100% there are three entities that have to agree with that, being the CFA, the City of Cincinnati, and the Hamilton County. They would all have to agree to extend the requirement for us to borrow by the end of the year. I don't think we can get that answer in the time frame we would need it for us to start the financing process. In order for us to finance by the end of this year, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were talking, we'd have to start that process by August. Is that right? At the latest?
If we wanted to give this its fair 3 readings, we would definitely have to do it in August. If we would actually go with a note issue instead of a bond issue, which it picks up a lot of flexibility, but also increases a little bit of risk because that financing is only good for 1 year, and we would have to take that back to the market and either issue new notes or bond it. That window gets condensed a little bit. We could do it a little bit shorter time for notes. But yeah, the window on borrowing is quickly going to come to an end. Everything after the legislation would go a little bit faster for notes. That's what condenses the timetable some.
Kevin, going back to what Kevin said about the 3 entities, I think you said CFA, city, and county would all, in order to extend it, or would all have to individually vote in favor of extending it. And does that mean then that if any one of the 3 had a no vote, that it would be a moot point? It has to be 3 for 3?
Yes, we're all 3. All 3 entities. In fact, the city of Sharonville isn't really even an entity for that purpose. They all 3 have to agree because it changes the cooperative agreement that created the Convention Facilities Authority.
I agree with Ed on that. Excuse me, on how he's put it. But I'm afraid that if we don't go through with this and we give the $3 million back, what's our chances of in the future of getting that money back is the big question, seeing how the county's negative and the city's running in a negative also. So, I mean, it could be five years, if not longer. I mean, hope not, but what's our odds of being able to get that money back is the big question also. I like to see the expansion go through, but then again, I don't want to see the city struggle if we lose that $3 million.
What's the what are we thinking the timeline is on completion?
Say that again, Ed.
What are we looking at from a timeline perspective on completion? If we, pick a date, whatever date you could pick to break ground, what do you think on the time from that until we're up and running?
It's about a 10 to 12 month project from the time they break ground.
So if we extend this to the last possible day we can, which I guess is coming up quickly, at what point are we starting? Scott, you might be able to chime in on that.
Yeah, we would probably be borrowing there in October, and we would be going out to bid somewhere in that next between there and January. But likely going out to bid and either before Thanksgiving or after Christmas. We'd probably try to avoid the in between.
So, and you're thinking, okay, so bid in Christmas, around Christmas time, before or after, and then, at what point do we decide, okay, we're going to start? We pick somebody and we start. I'm trying to put together a timeline.
So more than 12 months, less than 18 months.
We'd be looking fourth quarter of 2021 or first quarter of 2022, probably.
Okay, so that's kind of really what we're talking about, is that what are things going to look like when it, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to do is sort of justify it, and that, perhaps by then we've got a full house and we're operating, at full capacity like we always hoped we would, because by then the virus is, there's a vaccine and people aren't worried about it. Everything's open and we're operating. So that's what I'm trying to get at, is that perhaps, perhaps less of a concern.
I hear you, and I'll let Jim kind of follow up on that. But I think the convention center industry right now does not anticipate a comeback in 2021. So if we were built and ready to roll by the fourth quarter or first quarter 2022, I think we're going to have some pretty slow few first months. Jim, you want to either contradict me or confirm, whatever, that's your expertise. So I'm kind of playing off of things that we've talked about over the last week, but let's go from there.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, our industry and all the experts that I've been talking to, we're predicting slow recovery beginning fourth quarter of next year. 60 to 70% of our business at Sharonville Convention Center has always been the corporate market. And the corporate market has locked the door. They are not traveling. They are not having events. But we see that not changing until there is either a vaccine or, if not a vaccine, everybody has gotten it somehow, and we move on. But we don't see anything changing till the end of the fourth quarter of 2021. And the pendulum will take some time, and looks like, 2022 is the year we would get back to some sort of normal where events are happening on a regular basis.
So what do you think the incentive is for the county? Obviously, besides getting the $3 million cash back, that would be the only incentive I would think they would have to not agreeing to an extension.
Well, remember, they have these other projects. So the Millennium Hotel, they kind of blew their funds, so to speak, in purchasing that. And they have an eye toward expanding the Duke Energy Convention Center, but obviously they're in the same boat as we are with TOT tax revenues at an all-time low. There's no quick resolution for that, but obviously their eye is on that, and that is the next priority. We were fortunate in that our convention center's demand was there. We were successful. We were rocking, and we had the demand to ask for an expansion, and we were lucky enough to get the funding in front of the Duke. However, I think that with a pause and a request for an extension, there's going to be some feelings of, hey, we need to put the Duke potentially in front of our expansion and let those dollars work for that. So you probably do have a better idea than anybody here, but I don't understand what that incentive would be, because they'd be losing our expansion, and that they want it. They obviously want us to expand, right? There's already an agreement in place. Well, yeah, I think you have the county support. Obviously the city of Cincinnati is and the CFA would be a wild card on that.
The other issue is that I think it's really going to be that $3 million that's the big attraction, because I'm not too worried about the Duke Energy Center expansion kind of taking over that money. I'm more worried about the commitments that have been made to the Millennium and paying that balance off, because somebody's going to have to pay that. The Convention and Visitors Bureau and the shortages that they've had, because recently the county dipped into that fund in order to give a substantial amount of money to them in order to make up for some of the shortfall there. So that's the downside.
Yeah, I guess the way I'm looking at it is that, you know, they don't have that money now and they don't expect to get it back. So if we're telling them we're going to do the project, but in order for it to be a more successful project, we want to delay it. And so we're asking you for, you know, an extension on the deal. If you don't give it to us, then we're going to do it anyway. But in order for us to have a more successful project, we want an extension. And so I think that would be a really good, you know, way to present it. I mean, I don't know why they would not agree to that. I mean, I think we're heading in that direction, aren't we? I mean, seems like we want to do this, but I mean, it seems like we sure have a better idea of what's going on if we could extend it a little bit. So,
Hey, Kevin.
I don't know why they wouldn't agree to that.
Kevin, if we ask for that and the county move forward with a meeting with the CFA, obviously the county would have to agree to the extension and then present it to the CFA for a vote. From a timeline perspective, how long would something like that take to get it approved?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't have a good answer to that. We've seen the CFA move very quickly on some issues and not so quickly on others. That's the best way I can put that.
So is there, on that note, Kevin, following up on Ed's lead, let's say for us, there's a drop dead date. I'm just putting out August 1st. If we went with the path, going down the path of trying to get an extension and getting everybody to agree, if they do it before August 1st, great, and then we'll know. If they're dragging their feet and for whatever reason, and August 1st comes and we have to make a decision and we don't have one from them, then I guess the decision is we'd have to know that ahead of time. We're either not going to do it or we're going to go forward. So is there a harm in asking them for an extension and they don't give us an answer by the timeline that we need? And then we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway or not do it, I guess. I think we need to know what we would want to do.
Yeah.
If we go down the path, we need to know on August 1st, whatever date is, we're going to go proceed forward, not proceed forward, irregardless of what answer we get. But at least we've tried, we've waited. And if we get lucky, right, they'll tell us one way or the other. And if the answer is no extension, then once again, that we're going to do what we're either going to go for or not. And if they don't give us an answer, we're going to go for it or not go for it. So either way, I think there's a benefit of waiting. So I guess the question for you is, if we ask them, is there a negative of trying to get an extension, even though they may not meet the date that we need to make a call?
Yeah, that's it. We're just dealing with our own deadline. I mean, I can make phone calls tomorrow and say, here's what we'd like to do, and we can get some kind of general idea of what they feel about it. And then we'll be back here at the same spot. I mean, we'll either know where they're at or we won't at that point. So.
And then Kevin, aside from they may give you a verbal, what does it take to get it officially done where it's in writing essentially?
The county commission has to vote, the city of Cincinnati council has to vote, and the CFA has to vote.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that has to be done. There's no doubt. I mean, it's an uphill battle. I get it. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Ed. I mean, once again, when I hear August, are we talking the beginning, the end of August, mid-August? Because we're in mid-July right now, essentially.
Hey, Scott, let me ask you, I know that we haven't sent the project to bid, and my kind of earmark date was, hey, we needed to do that by September to get bids back and kind of get the estimate number to a real number to finance. But you're saying August, and maybe I'm confused. I thought the bid would have to happen first before we finance.
In a perfect world, the bid would happen first. Our criteria is that we have to have the project financed, not bid. And in some regards, it might be the best project we can afford, not exactly borrowing what the project we exactly want, if that makes sense.
Because the environment, I mean, because there might be some savings later.
Yeah, it's because it's we would be required to have getting the borrowing done is the criteria we have to meet. So that's more important than getting the bid done.
Gotcha. I understand.
And in some cases we're borrowing, I think what we're kicking around here is approximately the most we would want to borrow, period. So that's where it kind of falls. There's some alternates. If we can afford, the bids come back good, we would probably try to opt for.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at.
So you can finance before the bid process.
We do. Really what that would do is if we borrowed the money in October, we would start the clock. We have, you have 12 or 18 months to spend 90% of the dollars and so many years to totally liquidate the dollars or turn them over to debt service. So it would start the clock on spending the majority of the funds is what it would do.
But from a legislative standpoint, that would have to start in August.
August is a conservative but pretty real date. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If we would go with notes instead of bonds, and there's risk and reward to come with that, we could have a shorter time period and probably push into September a little bit. I'm not sure if it's first or second meeting. We would have to sit down and really map that out.
Yeah, and I don't think a month is really going to help us.
Right.
You know?
And I would point out a couple of things, things I think are beneficial to waiting. Obviously, if we don't get an extension, the current deal does go away entirely. But a couple of things that would be in our favor is it is unlikely for construction costs to be at the level that they are now. Hospitals and universities are no longer going to replace 10% of their buildings every year. Or add 10% to their building infrastructure every year, like they have been for the last decade. So construction prices should definitely go down, especially once supply chain kind of gets back in order. The other thing is the current model. If you look at it, the current model would generate, a fair chunk of change here on your screen by the end of the model. So this is basically took out the new money proposal. It would end right here. So that number really shows you we would have a fair amount of money to go back and try to construct a new deal. Not to say it's the same thing, not to say we would be able to get $3 million up front for another decade, but we would have some leverage to try to go back and work something else out. We could go back to the well again. The 1.3 a year for perpetuity might be easier to get a hold of than the $3 million up front would ever again. But we would have a shot at making something happen.
Yeah, the difficult part about all this is that even if we ask for an extension and we get it, and then we come to the date where we have to make a decision again, we could still be in the same position and really not. I mean, it could be easier from the perspective that we know that we don't want to do it, or we just don't know.
Yeah. Until about 5 days ago, this was an easy decision from my standpoint. We weren't going to do it, and see if we were going to get an extension. What I'm feeling, and correct me if anyone feels differently, but from this discussion, I'm feeling like this group and looking at this model and knowing all the reasons why we wanted to look at an expansion in the first place, that we are, at least as of right now, we are not in the position where we're saying, no, we're not going to borrow this money before the end of the year. We are open to that possibility still. And it's now going to be a conversation with our partners to see if that borrow has to come by the end of the year, or if we can get 6 months, another 12 months, whatever we can work out with our partners to see if there's a way of extending this to allow us to have
Right.
a better decision. And then we'll be back here in a couple of weeks to see how that discussion's going.
Right.
Is
And,
that-
and yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, Kevin, but when you said 6 or 12 months, that's really what we're talking about here. I don't think 3 months is going to help us either. I mean, by the way things are going, it seems like really 6 or 12 months is what we need.
Is that, anybody have feelings otherwise, that anybody of the opinion that, nope, we need to put the brakes on this and come back and talk about it in 5 or 6 years from now?
No, I think we should try and get the extension if possible. And I look at it this way: if I agree with Ed, we need 6 months or a year delay. If we don't do this, it's be years if we could get that type of 3 million back. And I guess if you look at it another way, we're trying to borrow, was it 12 million around there? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, if we don't borrow the 12 million, we're out 3 million, kind of essentially, correct?
Yeah.
We're giving up $3 million if we don't want to borrow 12 million. So $300,000, different story. 3 million, that's a nice chunk. That's a large sum of money. So I look at it that way too. So I'm willing to wait. I'm definitely think if we can go forward with a delay, that would be our best option, correct? Our second best option is, in my opinion, we would, without the delay, we would probably go forward, not to lose the 3 million and take the 12. Now, having said that, if we're back here in, let's say, 4 weeks and something else goes really awry, that could be a different story. So either way, I mean, once again, we're paying back 3 million essentially, or we're borrowing 12. So that's my comment.
I think we're all kind of in agreement on what we want to do. One thing I don't think we should wait. I think that we should plan as if we're going to move forward, so we don't put ourselves in any kind of time crunch. And then if it comes down to it, we find out we're not going to get the extension, and we decide we just can't do this, then it's easy. You just pull the plug and you stop. But if you go into a time when we're just not doing anything other than kind of waiting, and then decide to do it moving forward, I'm just afraid that would put us in a time crunch. And I worry about when things happen like that, mistakes seem like they always come up. So I would be in favor of us moving forward as if we are going to do it.
And Mike, we have. I mean, even though we've
Okay.
kind of, until, like I said, a week ago, kind of said we probably weren't doing this. We pretty much have been moving forward as far as putting the bid together, getting those kind of things set. So we're not behind the 8 ball at all at this point. It's just a matter of pulling the trigger.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we should try for the extension. If they're willing to work with us, then that'd be great, trying to get to 6 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
Then if they don't agree to it, then we come back and we make the hard decision of, now what do we do next?
Okay. Anyone else have any comments on that issue? I would like to ask you to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G1 to discuss an employment matter.
Okay, so we will need to take a vote on this, correct? So
We will.
Rob, is that, we do not need to take a vote to go
No,
to
you
executive
do.
session?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Rob, do you want to go into executive session?
Yeah, I make
Rob,
a
are you
motion.
in?
We go into executive session.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Okay. So the vote, Rob, do you want to go into executive session?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes also.
If I would ask Mr. Cook if he would invite all elected and
Okay.
Mr. Lucas and Mr. Powers and Mr. McKeon and Mr. Doughton to join us in that executive session. Did I cover everybody? I think so.
Yeah, so I will invite everyone that Mayor Hardman has recommended be part of this executive session. I'm not sure I could remember all, so we'll go with that.
Thanks,
Is that
sir.
sufficient?
That works.
Okay. So we are now going to go to executive session. So we'll, correct me if I'm wrong, we're gonna quit this meeting, go to the link that was given out for executive session and go in there.
Dave, can I make a motion that our budget and finance meeting is done for the evening to go into executive session?
You
You have to come back out.
can't do
I
that.
think we have to come back. Yeah, I think we have to come back out, correct?
Yes.
So,
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. So
Okay.
everybody go ahead and quit. Go to your email, hit the link for executive session. We'll come back in. Thank you. I don't know that everyone's here, but it looks like most of us are here. And really, it would be to, I don't recall, do we need to make a motion to come out of executive session, which we're back in? Okay, so I'll make a motion to come out of executive session.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, Rob, would you like to come out of executive session?
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes also. So we're back into the budget and finance meeting portion. Is there anything anyone would like to add? And we can make a motion to end the meeting. Okay, hearing nothing, I'll make a motion to end this meeting.
I second your motion.
Okay, Rob, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. So this meeting is ended. Thank you all for
Hey, Mark,
attending.
would you like to vote?
I always,
That's
All
not
righty.
Mark, that's Joe Dieters, according to Channel 9 News today.
Yeah,
He was Joe Dieters.
all right. All right, thank you all. Y'all have a good evening and stay safe.
Good night, folks.
right.
Good night, guys.
Right.